What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube. And tonight I've got another edition of The Drive-In, where I watch recently released films and tell you guys whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. Today I'm talking about a sequel. I am always happy in modern day theaters to get a sequel to a new franchise. We've got the start of a new franchise now with 2024's Smile 2. I am one of the few people that actually quite enjoyed the first Smile. I do agree with critics that it was fairly cheesy at certain points, but they also overlooked the fact that it was genuinely tense and had some pretty good themes of both supernatural and reality happening in the first movie. Yeah, there were some moments they could have cut out. There was some stuff that was a little cheesy and took you out of the moment at times, but it also had a good character study, a good descent into madness, and a lot of good moments of genuine terror in it. And so I was looking forward to seeing what Smile 2 would do, building off the original. Now, I might be spoiling the first Smile in this review, so if you've not seen Smile 1 from a couple years ago, go check that one out. I might say something that spoils the first Smile. I won't be spoiling Smile 2. I will keep this spoiler free. It just came out, I think, a week and a half ago, about 2 weeks ago now, and I just went to go see it with a good buddy of mine. Shout out to Mike for going to see it with me. But I want to talk spoiler-free quickly about Smile 2 here, because I was looking forward to seeing this. Like I said, I like seeing modern things turned into sequels and building on brand new lores out there instead of just doing the same old remakes and reboots. This one is written and directed by Parker Finn, who also wrote and directed the first movie. And it stars Naomi Scott as Sky Riley. Naomi Scott, I really enjoyed her in this movie, and we'll talk about it. But just went to look her up because of how good I liked her in this movie, how much I liked her in this movie, and saw that she was not only Princess Jasmine in the new live-action Aladdin movie, but also the new Kimberly the Pink Ranger in the new Power Rangers movie. So she's obviously building on some really cool, iconic roles and playing, doing a good job in most of that. I didn't care much for the Aladdin movie, but I did like the Power Rangers movie, and I did like her as Kimberly. Shout out to Amy Jo Johnson, the original Pink Ranger, my first crush. Let's talk about this movie instead. So basically in this movie, we do see Kyle Gallner. That's a spoiler from the first movie. Kyle Gallner's character is the sole survivor in the first movie, and we do see him in this movie. I won't spoil what his capacity or what his role is, but he does reprise his role from the first film to resume and continue continuity with the Smile universe, which I really appreciate. I don't like seeing things that just cut the first movie off and start brand new each time, like they would do in the 80s. So it's nice to see some continuity in this. That's a plus. My first big positive that I wrote down is Naomi Scott. Naomi Scott has got star power in this. She essentially plays a Lady Gaga type character, and they actually make a little reference to Gaga in this movie that I appreciate, because I saw the trailers and I was like, oh, is this Lady Gaga? I thought it was actually her. She looks kind of like her in this, and she's playing a very Gaga style of performer, which they do reference in this. But Naomi Scott's character, Sky Riley, is a worldwide pop star phenomenon who is coming off of some personal trauma in relationships in her life, where she took a break from the music industry to go away and get better, and now she has resumed her life. But of course, the Smile curse is part of her universe now, which we saw in the trailer. So that is the spoiler-free synopsis. But I think Naomi Scott is wonderful in this, just very much like in the first movie with the original protagonist in Smile. You get the theme of descent into madness. You get the whole gaslighting. Nobody trusts them. They're a woman that has nobody on their side. They're slowly watching these things happen, and nobody helps defend them. Everyone thinks they're getting crazier and crazier. And the world between reality and their delusions or hallucinations, or how much is curse and how much is reality, starts to all blend together into this Twilight Zone kind of mishmash. And they do that so well in the first movie, and do it just as well in this movie. I really like the descent into madness here, and that is, there's just some genuine moments, and we'll talk about the themes in this, but the themes and the moments that make you feel for Naomi Scott in this are excellent, and that is a three-pronged, three-headed monster, so to speak. Good direction, good writing, and good casting. The acting in this needs to sell that descent into madness and make you feel for their journey, and Naomi Scott does just that as Sky Riley. Number 2, tension. The movie, the first one, really thrived on the tension because it had that cinematic world kind of it did a few things differently, and we'll talk about those too. But I think in this movie the tension is really, really good. I think the jump scares I have written down as a positive and a negative, because there are some that are really, really good. I'm not a good barometer for jump scares because more times than not they feel cheap to me, and because I have cerebral palsy, and so I am prone to jumping at most anything. I will jump a billion times. I'll watch the same movie 5 times and jump every time. I'm just a jumpy person. I have nerve disorders and things like that. So jumping is easy for me. That being said, there's some really tense moments leading up to the jump scares in this, and a lot of the jump scares feel earned. They feel like they are well placed. Some don't. That's one of the negatives, but for the most part, the jump scares are good, and the build up to the jump scares are scary, and there are just some genuine moments in this, even after the jump scares happen, that make you go, wow, if this happened in my real life, and not just mental health, but also your physical health on the line, really, really make you feel for what Naomi Scott's going through. There are some moments that you go, I can't imagine this happening in my actual life. It's pretty terrifying. To be able to watch it in theaters definitely added to it. I will say also, the cinematic world that Smile created in the first one shows itself here. This one feels like a Smile movie. It's a different environment this time, but they took a lot of the tropes that made the first one work for me, especially, namely, the upside down and sideways camera angles they use on the drone shots and some of the wide shots. They go sideways camera, they go overhead upside down camera. Some of the musical notes, the jump scare hits are good, but they use some detuned notes, taking some basic melodies and detuning them down to make them scarier. That worked big time in the first film and works just as well in this film. Although we are bigger and wider in this universe, in this sequel, they do a good job making this feel in the musical and cinematography ways, much like the first one. My next note is that this is bigger. They took the original film and they didn't want to rest on their laurels. I appreciate they could have just taken a brand new person, Naomi Scott, and said, okay, you're going to go through the same things the other character did in the first one. It's going to be just the same movie in, a similar setting, and just tell the story over again. They didn't do that. They made everything feel bigger. Everything felt more drawn out. The environments felt bigger. The crowds felt bigger. She was a pop star, so she was in like stadiums and things. There was more people around. All the tension-filled scenes were longer and kind of built around more. So everything felt like they were taking it up a notch to make the sequel feel bigger than the original. Mental health. Mental health was a big thing in this, and I'm going to put this just kind of into the next one, which I have written down as stardom and industry and identity. I have all of those things. The themes in this movie had a lot more bite to them than just your standard horror film. They're not just making this a mental demon kind of film. They're not just making it a slasher or someone's crazy. They're doing a nice job in weaving in the mental health aspect. Like I said, the first one shined because you felt for the main character. She was seemingly going crazy, but in reality it was all happening to her, and no one believed her. She was totally alone, and she was isolating herself with these things, and she was being isolated by those around her. So she was not only losing her sanity and her safety, but also, as these terrible things are happening to her, the people that she could once count on were leaving her life and leaving physical damage behind her. And that happens in this one as well. The mental health taking its toll in the slow descent into madness really showed itself well in this, but they even ratcheted up a notch. Kind of the price of fame and the negativity of stardom were new themes elevated in this one too. It's not just a mental health deterioration, but it's also, people, the mother being the agent and the tour dancers. They're all prioritizing her fame over her sanity. They're not believing her because they're putting money and they're putting fame and career opportunities over this person's well-being. So you really feel for kind of the fame monsters in her life. Naomi Scott is not just a prisoner of what's going on around her, but everyone not only not believing her, but kind of, hey, go on tour, make this money, do this show, go to this appearance. We don't care that you're feeling sick. We don't care what's happening to you. Go fulfill your commitments as a pop star. So the price of fame and idolatry and things around her are really nice themes woven into the already existing mental health theme in this movie. Now on to some negatives. Like I said, jump scares. There are some that are just like out of nowhere that don't feel earned. They're kind of cheap. They put a lot of jump scares in this movie, and more of them than not are good. There are a couple that are just like, oh, that they totally forced that in, or they're doing it too much, or they're relying on it too much. We didn't really need that in this movie. Secondly, I complain about this a lot with modern movies. It's going to happen more going forward. This movie's 2 hours and 12 minutes. I think that's with credits. I think it's 2:07 plus credits. This thing runs 2:12, and that's way too long. I said this as well in my Terrifier review. This movie's got a little more meat than Terrifier. It's not quite a basic slasher, but it's pretty basic, and I think some of the scenes go on too long. And Some for the Sake of Tension is good, but they do a lot of like the music scenes that go on for a long time because Naomi Scott's a singer. She came, I think, from Disney at one point. So she sang all of her own songs, which good for her. She killed it. She was great. But they use those music scenes a little too long. Some of the stuff just stretches out where it doesn't need to be. They could have made this an hour and 45 minutes, an hour and 50 even. I'd have been fine with that. There's about 25 minutes too much footage in this movie. You could have told the same story even more effectively by cutting out some of the riffraff stuff. I think 2:12 is too long for this. Then I have two really big negatives to end this thing. Number one, I put what's real. One of the things that makes this movie scary and makes it successful in some ways is that there's a thin line between what's actually happening to the character and what the reality is. So something happens to somebody and it's not the other person doing it, it's her. Or this thing could be happening in her mind, but in the reality of where she's standing and who's around her, they're not seeing what's happening. This demon is partially invisible, at least for part of the movie. This demon's kind of invisible. So things are happening to her that other people around her are not seeing, or sometimes aren't happening in real life, because the reality and the mental health and the demon all bleed into one. So you don't know what's real and what's not, or what's in her universe versus what's in their universe. And that makes it successful because you have to question everything. But when you overdo it and you kind of use it as a crutch, and you go, oh, well, this whole thing didn't happen, but this thing actually is happening. Oh, it's like this is kind of a dream inside of a dream. When you start to layer things and make it too confusing for the audience, where the audience has to question if it happened or not beyond the initial jump scare, then you've got a problem. And I think this movie, in particular, there's a long patch of things that it's kind of like, did this happen? Did it not happen? I don't like that. I don't want to be watching a movie for 20, 30, 40 minutes and not know if at the end if this thing is real or not. There's certain things I had to look up because I had to see what's the fan theory, what actually happened. And I get that kind of ambiguity and kind of mixed reality can lead to some conversations and can make the audience talk and want to see it again. But sometimes when they do it too much and you're kind of just confused, you feel like you're wasting your time and you feel like the filmmakers are playing with you where you don't really you don't care enough by the end. You don't care what's reality and what's not. They borderlined on that for me in this one. All in all, I thought it was good, but there were moments that I was like, they didn't have to put another one of those in there. It's a little too much for me. And then the ending. The ending, again, kind of goes into that same vein to an extent. The ending was kind of predictable, even in spite of all the things. When you see the trailer, you can kind of guess like, I bet you the end's going to be like this. And that's kind of what it is. I won't give anything away, but if you can kind of proffer a guess based on the trailer, I would say don't watch the trailer going into this if you can. But if you've seen it or you want to watch the trailer and try to guess what you think the ending would be, you're probably going to be right. And for a movie that's 2 hours and 12 minutes, you don't want an ending that's predictable like that. So I'm going to dock some points for the ending. All in all, I've got to say it's good. I think it's a worthy sequel. I like the first one better. I think the first one is more contained and tells a more linear story that makes more sense and has overall, I think it just avoids the problems with the runtime that the second one has. That being said, Naomi Scott's phenomenal. I think the writing and directing by and large is very good. I think making it bigger was good. I think the gore and tension are great. I think the themes and the building of themes upon themselves is very good. So if you like Smile, I think you'll like Smile too. Like I said, it falls just below the first one for me. I gave the first one, I think, a 7 out of 10. I'm going to give this one a 6.5 out of 10. Not amazing. Definitely some things to question. Maybe I wouldn't watch it again, but all in all, I liked it and had a good experience, and I think it will land somewhere in like the 7 or 8 range for me in my top 10 horror by the end of the year. So what did you think if you saw it? Tell me in the comments down below. If you haven't seen it, it's in theaters right now. I recommend going to check it out. It is worth having a discussion. And when you see it, come back and talk to me in the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like these horror deep dives and you want to see more reviews coming up pretty soon. I just did a review for Azrael, the Samara Weaving action horror movie that is now on Shudder. It's an IFC Films release. It was in theaters. Now it's on Shudder. I just wrote a review on pophorror.com. So if you want to see a journalistic review of Azrael, go check that out on pophorror.com. I'll be doing a review as well for The Substance here coming up in the next couple days. So check that one out. Also, my Steeler reviews are continuing to come. Hope you guys are enjoying October and your horror month. And I will see you guys soon. Take care.